And they said, we've got some money, and we've got the platform, and we would want you to tell your story. So that's the most basic of definitions of what commissioning is. Somebody has got some money somewhere, and maybe someone else has got a platform, and you've got your vision, you've got your narration, you've got your story, you've got, and they come to you and they say, hey, let's partner. So for this amount of money, we want you to produce for us. I do believe that there are probably even more definitions of what commissioning is, but I'm speaking from my experience, especially that Ubuntu was the first show that Zambezi commissioned with me. So that's how it happened. So
So what then is licensing? What would have been the difference between?
Okay.
That's the commissioning vision.
Okay.
So licensing would have been what? What would?
I think, because I haven't had any of my works licensed yet, but obviously from the textbook and from my friends, I think Paul,
yes,
you have been licensed.
Yes.
Let's give it to Paul to probably.
Thank you so much. Let's give it to Paul.
All right, thank you very much for this wonderful platform. Thank you, BJ.
Thank you so much.
And I have so much respect for all the filmmakers seated on this panel today. Kenny, so much respect for you. Joe, Yoweli, and the audience. You're amazing. Basically, what I understand by licensing, I think I'll go back, as we do not really very, very much back because it's a long story. I think in 2016, I had worked on a feature film I'd produced, not directed. So I worked on a feature film called Broken. And by that time, I didn't understand what film licensing and commissioning was. And so when we worked on this project with my team, by that time, my partner, my cousin, Fidelis Mayambu, who retired from filmmaking, Eddie. And so we worked on a feature film, and we met Zeno. Zeno was the head of channel on Zambezi Magic some time back, yes. And so he told me, this is a good project and would want to license it. And so when I said, what is licensing? I didn't understand what that word meant because, I didn't go to film school, honestly, and I started learning certain things as I went on as a filmmaker. And so what I understand by licensing is you have probably a channel, or it could be cinema, whatever it is, but then they will come to you and buy your content for a certain period of time. So for example, if I have like a feature film, so my feature film was licensed by Zambezi Magic for like 2 years. So it was going to be for Zambezi. Sometimes this licensing can be also like non-exclusively and also inclusive. So what that means is when you have a project that is being licensed, which means you worked on it with your own budget. Okay? You gathered your crew, gathered your people, your actors, everything else, shot the project. When you were done, then you took it off to broadcasters or probably, licensors that buy your content. And so when they buy your content, they'll keep it for a short period of time, sometimes longer. I think Can They See Us is a licensed project for Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. It's all commissioned, right? Yeah, and so they'll keep it for a certain period of time, of which you agreed maybe for like a month or probably sometimes 2 years, 6 months. Yeah, so that's basically about licensing. It's giving your project that you worked on to a media house or a platform or a VOD platform, whatever it is, so they can show it for a certain period of time and then give it back to you. But it still remains your project at the end of the day. So yeah, that is it about licensing.
So licensing and commissioning is where they come to you and say, do this for us, here's the money, and they produce it. It's theirs.
Yes, it's theirs.
Licensing is a short lease. Licensing is a short lease. We like your product. We're going to show it on our platform for a couple of months, for a couple of series, for a couple of what, and then it still remains your property. And you're free to take it to other platforms after terms and conditions. What are the advantages? Ken?
How's everyone doing today? My name is Kenny Mumba. I started out as a commercial director. Now I've just added a film as a director. So mainly what I've been doing the past couple of years is we used to run a company called Ground Zero. So Ground Zero used to shoot music videos and shoot a lot of commercials. You can hear me in the back, or I need to speak up? So what Ground Zero used to do is shoot commercials, music videos. I think JK, Mumpy, back in the day. And then we shot commercials for a while, but then after I started shooting commercials a while, I didn't understand what a director really does, because we come from a background where you shoot, edit, color grade, come up with the concept, maybe even the art director putting something up. So I come from that background. Then fortunately, when I met my wife, Yasmin Todia, is when we started to dedicate, kind of like focus on what I'm good at, and then I focused on directing. So the advantage with that, it opened the door for me to be able to travel Africa, shoot commercials for a lot of global brands. And I think that skill in itself really helped to understand quality control, because you're dealing with brands that have what you call pack shots that you need to light really well. Just consistency in picture in terms of how it looks, and the process of making sure that the sound design is amazing, and all those things. So now I took those skills, and we had an opportunity when Mr. Lawrence Thompson approached us. So what our production house did is we produced the film in regards to setting up what is the equipment needed because of my background. How do we set up the teams and stuff like that. So that's what my wife did as the producer. So when we produce Can You See Us, what Paul Wilo was talking about in regards to licensing is we were knocking on doors to look for someone who would stream it, purchase it, or we had no idea, but it was a learning curve. And then when we finally got to Netflix, and Netflix watched it and then accepted it. So accepting it meaning it was a licensed deal, it's not an original. So when you're watching Netflix, you see where it says Netflix originals. So the advantages and disadvantages of that is with an original, it's a story that the channel or the streaming service will control. So they'll be able to say, read your script and say, we don't like this, we don't like that, change this, change that, or introduce this in your story. Or we feel the story should not be set here, can be set somewhere else. So that's like on an original. But the advantage with the licensing is that you tell the story the way you want to tell your story in regards to how you want it styled, how you want the music, how you want the performances. Whereas with originals, they come back and do reshoots and change certain things. So that's my understanding and my experience.
Awesome. Joel?
Hello, everyone. My name is John Njagu. I've just been ambushed by Henry to come sit here. I'm a producer director, and I've been making films for the last, I think, 22 years, with my main focus being feature films, although sometimes we delve into like freelance work between documentaries, music videos, and all that. And just to add on to what Ken is talking about, the advantages and disadvantages of commissioning or licensing. With a commissioning deal, you don't own the product. It's owned by the broadcaster or the platform or whoever paid for it. So after it's done, it's made, that's it. You're not going to make any more money from it, right? So that's one of the disadvantages. But a big advantage is that it saves you, like as a producer, like they're catering for the entire budget. So you're not really worried about knocking on more doors to find funding. With licensing, the advantages are that, like depending on what deal you crack, like whether it's going to be a non-exclusive or exclusive, is that you can keep on selling it even after the licensing deal expires. One of the reasons that I personally had to make sure that I attended Sotambe was that there's been, I call it the curse of our side of Africa, right? Where these big platforms and streamers, they just offer us licensing deals only. They don't offer us commissioning deals, like what Ken was talking about. If it's commissioned by Netflix, you see it'll have an end to say it's a Netflix original, right? So this puts us at a disadvantage, and rightfully so. There's a comrade, I think this was you, who mentioned who spoke about numbers, right? And it kept ringing in my head when you were like, oh, you gave Nigerian, people always say numbers, right? And you're talking about the content in Nigeria might be mediocre, but it's still showing, and you can have a Zambian film that's better. I totally agree with that reasoning of numbers, of saying, like, to them, it's just eyes on the screen. How many eyes can we get on the screen? And I've had meetings with like people from like Netflix and all that, and we have a film from Zimbabwe that's on Netflix, which I produced, called The Cook-Off, and we keep having these talks about them saying, we don't have numbers in Zimbabwe, we don't have numbers in Zambia, we don't have numbers in Malawi, right? And we constantly have had these talks. And one of the guys, fortunately, who's one of the heads at Netflix, who recently got there, is a Zimbabwean. And
His number, please. His number.
I'll share it. His name is Tatenda. His name is Batatu, Tendeka Matatu, right?
Awesome.
And he keeps talking about how this side of Africa, we need to come together.
Correct.
We need to combine our numbers. Because if you look at Zimbabwe, we're like 15, 14 million people. Look at Zambia, and if we're talking about Nigeria, we're talking about 200 million, right? So for Netflix, it only makes sense for them to pump in as much money as they can to commission stuff, whether it's going to be good or what, it's going to be watched, right? So for us, like if I'm saying, we're a population of 15 million people, that's like 10% of Nigeria. So I feel one of the key things that we probably need to do as filmmakers, as producers, is to think around how best we can come together. Like, even in terms of cultures, we're similar, man. Like Zimbabwe, Zambia, there's no difference, right? So I'm very passionate about seeing how best we could find ways of coming together and control those numbers and shift that whole licensing mentality into commissioning. Because commissioning, that's where the money is. That's where the big money is. Right now, they're focusing on 3 countries: South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya. That's where they're only commissioning. Nowhere else, right? Because of the numbers, right? So we somehow need to form our own kind of Voltron and come together and see how best we could change that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Numbers. Economies are driven by numbers. Economies are driven by numbers everywhere. We need to change our numbers. We need to work on our numbers. Yeah, like Joel said, if we don't have numbers of Zambia, how do we get them from Malawi? How do we get from Zimbabwe and form one big number? Okay. Having talked about commissioning and licensing, I want to know if there are any questions, contributions, observations from the audience that you would like to talk to the panel to address. Yes, sir. Pardon? Right? You mean you are sitting? You are that tall?
Thank you. I just like the last point that he brought out about us joining hands and creating my voice. Okay. I like the last point that he brought out concerning us joining hands and creating the numbers. Not only are we similar in culture, there's a similarity in our languages. Yeah. If you look at our languages in the East, they're very similar to those that are in South Africa, maybe even in Zimbabwe. So it only makes sense that we come together and create the numbers that we are lacking, so that the major platforms like the Netflixes of this world can now start looking at us seriously. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Please.
Yeah, just to make comment, I think was it Ken or him? The issue of licensing. I think for me, it's also important. It's important in the sense that it gives you that liberty that you can tell your own story. Because much as we want money, but there's also an aspect where you want to tell authentic stories. That's key. I was with Harry recently. He was sharing one of his experiences. So, like, an experience where they had to change the story because the financiers had to detect how the story should be told. So much as I appreciate the efforts of commissioning and all that, and that's what most of us would aim to have, but also we shouldn't underrate the power of licensing, that aspect where we can tell our own stories, because that's what will make us be what we are. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have a question on how commissioning works in relation to intellectual property. I think it works very well with licensing because you have that cleared out of the way before you lease out your work. But how does it work with commissioning? So your intellectual property, anyone can take that.
Paul Wilo, please. Oh, thank you so much.
I think it depends really from which country you're from. I think with the United States, the producers sort of still have control of the IP. And in regards to rights, at some point, even if the film is sold elsewhere on other platforms or other channels, they will still get out something, which means their copyrights are protected. IP, I mean intellectual property. But then when it comes to Africa, that has been like a struggle. I've been to a lot of platforms where people have complained about once, for example, if I'm working on a series or on Zambezi Magic or on an Mnet original, so to put it, or a Netflix original, and I lose that, and they give it to Kenny to continue producing, I cannot go back and get paid from it. Even if I started, even if the concept was originally mine, even if I developed it, at that point it ceases to be mine. And so there's been that struggle. So for African, I think we still need a lot of policies in check. There's a lot of need to put certain policies in check because we seem to be struggling with that. And it's not only Zambia. We have these complaints in Zimbabwe, in Malawi, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Ghana. The complaints are the same because once you give your project or your original idea and they get it, it's done. It's not going to be yours. So I think that's one of the disadvantages, again, of a commissioned project, because once they get it from you, you will not claim it at some point. 20 years from now, you cannot come back and say, oh, you sold it to Chakuti, I need some money. You can't do that. But for a licensed project, you have the rights because it remains with you. And so even if for 40 years, if Netflix decides to come and get all the content that was produced in Zambia for the past 5 years, they'll still get your content and to still what? Make your own money. But for a commission project, once it's done, it's done. And I think that has been a danger for a lot of filmmakers as a whole. I think a lot of people have had opportunities where it's good for building. I think Yoweli mentioned last time capacity building. I think it does miracles. You buy your equipment, you have your studio well built, the money was spent and everything else. But then I think for the IP in Africa, it's still a problem. And so I don't know what we need to do. I think this should also be a discussion on its own. How do we protect our IP? How do we own IP? How do we make sure that every time our content is put out there, even if you're not part of the project, but then you're part of the original concept, you still make money from it?
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Please.
Okay.
Mr. Makumba.
Allow me to sit, please.
Please, senior citizen.
Yeah, let me just give a twist to that because I've done both commission works and licensing works. The differences are this. Let's start with licensing. Licensing, you have your own story. You fund everything. You hire everyone. So you as the producer, you are the one spending money. So you pay everyone. You have taken a gamble. You probably don't know even where you will sell it. So everybody else walks off, you remain with the costs. That's why it is yours, because you are the one who has taken a gamble. Now with commissioning is you start with an idea. I have an idea and you break it down into 2 pages of a concept. Pitch it with a budget. I'm being simplistic here. Pitch it with a budget. And the one with the money says, we like the idea. We would like you to develop further. So we'll give you the money to do everything. Do you have the equipment? Maybe we say you have. You still hire the equipment from yourself because the equipment comes in with money. Yasmin was telling us that our money is in the budget.
The budget, correct.
Okay? So you hire the cast, you hire the crew, you submit the budget to them. In our case, we submit our budgets. I think most of us are sending our commission work to Zambezi Magic. They look at the budget you have sent. You do your haggling and you agree. Okay? One of the things we had in the past was you agree with the staff, you pay them this. With Zambezi, you agree this, you pay differently. They now check. So the contracts they sign, you attach the contract copies of everyone. I've been doing this for the past 5 years. You send those. They give you the contract to hire writers, to feed the writers, to give them transport. They meet all the costs. It is why they own it.
Let me add on. I'm gonna use my like I say, I'm using experience, a lot of experience. So when Zambezi approached me, I was privileged. First of all, like I say, they approached me. Usually you have to fight, you have to go for them. So obviously other people ask what? It's just how you position yourself. I positioned myself for a very long time. And when I was working on Ubuntu, which took me 6 years to develop, it was a very personal story. It was about my mother, my late mother. And so, yeah, I was excited, honored to go there. We got into the pitch. I did this beautiful pitch. They loved it. I knew I got them. They then asked me, they then told me, we're going to have to get the rights. And I was like, ooh, I posed. And I said, no, you can't have it. This is a personal story. I'm not going to do it. So there was a bit of... And so I was ready to unplug the whole excitement. But then I sat down with my team, collaboration. I sat down with my team, and my team says, we've been trying to do this for a very long time. We don't have any openings to get into any system. Maybe it's time you let go of this vision and use this platform to build yourself. Next time you will, when you're ready, you will license stuff out. And I'm saying this because let's balance this discussion. Most of us do not have the money.
No.
You don't have the resources. You don't even know where to find the money. He was asking, where's the money? Where's the money? The money is in your idea, the concept. Your investment in it, that's your money. That's where the money is. So I walk in, I tell people, I've got the most expensive mind. It's very expensive. And so I made a business decision, to let them commission my idea. And also, I was so privileged, I don't know if they do it now, but I was so privileged to be able to go and sit on a table and negotiate for my rights. It wasn't a lot of money, but at least I was happy that the 6 years I had invested in, was kind of compensated. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Just to add on Yoweli's experience, allow me to share a quick story of mine. I was hired for a show where I was, for 60 episodes, I was paid 15,000 kwacha. 60 episodes. I was paid 15,000 kwacha. Not per episode. No, as an actor. Mr. Ngus. So yeah, I was paid 15,000 kwacha, and I was told because our roles were small, they were looking at the young hanks who were attracting uni students and so on. As it was a village setup. So I was paid 15,000 kwacha, and I appreciate up to now for the 60 episodes. And so because I know me, I know my product, I know how to package myself, I took the 15,000 kwacha with both hands when I was given that opportunity. So season 2 was awarded to the show, and because we had made our side of the village or the side of the story exciting, we're pulling numbers. I added, when it came to negotiating the contract, I added another 0. 0 is nothing. It depends on where you put it. It depends on where you put it, yeah? So I put a 0 on the other side. It went to 150. And it came to, and also we're doubling because it was 120 episodes. I did that. And And then season 3 was awarded. I placed a digit in between some numbers, and the producers refused. They said no, we can't offer you that, and that we have a budget. We have a tight budget. I wish Owas was here. Owas talked about knowing your brand, knowing how to package yourself. And so when I was told we are unable to give you this money, but we want you to know that everybody here can be replaced. Okay? That's the threat that most of you producers use. Everybody can be replaced, including the show. All right. So I stuck to my guns because I know what I am and what I brought to the show. And so I said, okay, fine. Here is where we part company. And thank you so much for the 2 seasons. I appreciate. But they came back and said, okay, fine. We're going to give you part of this money, but you're only going to appear in a couple of episodes and we'll phase you off. And I said, no, the viewer doesn't know I'll be phased off. Okay? So I'm going to stay around. It's either you give me this or not. And we parted company on that note. It was not an easy decision to make. All right? It was not an easy decision to make, but I know what I went home, I was laughed at, I was used as an example, and so on. And so the channel came back and said, look, come to SA. I flew to SA and said, can we then give you this? I said, no. If anything, I want a show of my own. I said, are you sure you're able to pull this? I said, yes. We discussed, and I was given my own show. I hire my own cast. I fire my own cast. Yeah, so today I can greatly say because I know how to negotiate. I knew how to negotiate. God on my side. I knew how to negotiate my way. And also, one thing I want to say is, when you know what you are worth, then you know how to sell yourself. Yeah. And so it's not every time you have it easy. Yeah. So commissioning, yes. Are we done with commissioning? Any more questions? Yes, bruv. Yeah, what you mean?
So you can go first. No. Oh, I was kidding. All right, thanks. I was listening to Mr. Mumba here. He mentioned something about everything has to go to the channel, the contracts, what happens on a production set, everything, all the paperwork. Now, what's really bothering me here is it that the channel is really satisfied with what's going on, like what people are getting, especially like talent and crew? If every contract is going to them, I mean, are they really like satisfied with what the talents are getting?
First of all, we will not review,
to bring that product to life.
Just a minute. I will not review as a producer. Now I can share this with you. We're not supposed to review these are very confidential discussions. Okay. With facts. But here is a person who tells you, dude, for this show we're giving you, say, hypothetically speaking, say 5 million, right? For 5 million you have to do A, B, C, D. Now I come to you, Rock, you're the best DOP, all right? I'm looking at my budget. This is what I've been given for equipment. This is what I've been given for what? You're not going to hire Rock alone and forget everybody else. You have a budget to look after. Mm-hmm. But after all that is done, you send back the budget to what? To China. And China will tell you, no. You're bringing Rock on your show, and you're paying him this much. They are gracious enough to tell you, no. This one will tweak a bit. We can get money from here. Instead of you hiring a limo, why don't you use Mr. Nguzu's car and then give this money to the Rock, so that you have a budget. So those things go behind, those things happen. Mm-hmm. For what they are giving us, I'm not the channel spokesperson. For what they are giving us, and for all this content, the buyers, what they're giving us right now, against what they're getting, trust me, I'm not the channel's spokesperson, but let's be grateful.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah, and we are.
Can I just say something, right? I think just a minute before Mr. Mumba says something. I think if we're going to turn this into channel and actor and crew conversation, then this conversation is going to die.
Exactly.
Okay, because there are people out there that have no idea of how much some people are paid in Zambia. They just want to hear a conversation about monetizing, distribution. What's it called? No, I'm talking about the earlier conversation, licensing and commissioning. So let's just probably stick to the conversation right now. If you have questions about maybe payment, follow Mr. Makumba and Henry Josakala outside. I think they'll explain that better.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. All right, so anything around
just 1 second. Because he's asked, it would look like there's something to hide, really. There isn't anything to hide. And I'm also not speaking on behalf of the channel. But see it this way. When you present a budget, I present a budget, my negotiations is because of who I am going to use, who I'm going to hire. And we do not treat all of them the same. If you are hiring someone who's been in the industry 20 years and somebody who's breaking into the industry, maybe that's their first gig, obviously their pay rates will be different. And also, there are also chances that you might go to season 2. It's in the interest of the funder to protect actually the people hired, that they are getting a fair deal out of it. You know, it's better that way. That when you present your budgets and you present the contracts that you've done, in relation to what you yourself are getting, it's making business sense for you and for the others. I think that's probably the reason why that is done. I would do the same. I hire you to do works, and you tell me you need 20 people. You tell me you need the 500,000. I want you to give me a breakdown of how you are using it. If all the money is going to you, then I know you'll have strife on your set. People will not be happy. They will not eat well. They will not have transport. They will not be paid enough and all that. So that's where that comes from. So let's forget this. We are not speaking on behalf of the channel. They actually.
We'll go with the guidance from
Paulo. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. There was a hand in the back. We'll take one more, and then then we can move to the next.
Yeah, good, thank you. I was just curious, going back to what we were discussing about the IP, kind of protecting your property a little bit. I was just curious, you said that there's some discussion and we kind of need to figure out how we can set up a system or have contracts or all of that in place. So I was just wondering, where does that conversation start from when it comes to the industry as a whole? Is that involving government? Is it, I come from an environment where there's unions that are created to kind of negotiate and protect the different departments or individuals. So I was just wondering, where does that conversation begin with here? What groups are in place, or what entities are in place to begin to have these conversations so that we can begin to make a clear pathway forward for the industry as a whole? And then, so that's kind of part one. Second part is under specifically with IP. Are there agencies or managers in place in the systems that are there to help guide producers? Because what I've heard is a producer needs to make sure the contract says this and it's exclusive or non-exclusive, but there are some people that are not, that's not what they're trained in. So are there agencies or departments in the film industry now that you can go to have like a lawyer or an agent or a manager represent you so that they're making sure that everyone is safeguarded and everyone is getting the best deal possible? I hope that, just kind of two parts, but I hope it makes sense.
Okay, I hope you remember those questions.
It's one, really. It's one question, and it will be answered in one. That is what is happening. That's where we are lacking as a country, as an industry. We do not have guilds. We do not have unions. And so the producers or the channels or the content buyers take advantage of, they know that we don't have this representation. So they'll come to me and negotiate with him. If he says no, or they'll come back to the other guy, which cannot happen if we are well regulated through guilds, through unions. So that is our cry. The unfortunate part is, After Sotambe like this, we are all going to go in our different ways and forget. And then until the next Sotambe, and we'll gather and talk like that. But who knows this? It's the producer, it's the content buyer. He knows how disorganized we are. They're taking advantage of that disorganization. So the appeal is after this, can we go back and make the film guild strong? Can we make the producers guild strong? The actors guild strong? As long as we don't have these guilds, forget about a united front. Forget about proper representation. I will talk on my behalf. He will represent himself. He will present himself. And divided, as long as we are divided, we can never stand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think just to touch on a bit on what you said, but I'll ask my question later on. There's been these conversations because I come from Nama, and I thank God for the current regime is that they've given so much power to the associations. Right now, even if you need government support, you can't. Oh, I stand, sorry. I usually see myself to be very big, so I was thinking of my people behind. So there have been these conversations. I'm saying, thank God that the current regime has given so much power to associations. Right now, you can't go to government and help you if you're a filmmaker until you pass through NAMA or National Arts Council. So the conversations has been there, and through the NAMA roadmap, we've been trying to put up guilds. But I think the challenge has been where Bija said after this, we usually go our way. We just needed a time where we can brainstorm and see how we can make up these guilds. But the platform is there to make the guilds, and the mandate and the support is also there to make the guilds. Now, coming to my question, and also an appeal to Sotambe. I think next time when you have such beautiful photos, bring someone from the channel. Everybody, just one person. So that some of these questions can be adequately answered. Because most of these things for people who has never been commissioned, there are two areas. I don't even know who to ask, because even if I ask you, you have a certain limit at which you can answer me. But if there's someone from channel that have asked those questions, but let me ask my question. It's a bit selfish, but I'll still ask it anyway. I wanted to ask Ken and my brother have managed to put something on Netflix. Just how easy is it for a person to have, not really have something on Netflix, but a platform to say, I've got ABCD. Is it possible for commissioning? Is it possible for licensing? How's been your experiences? Thank you so much.
Do you want to take that call, so that maybe to be something that you can answer together?
Yes,
is that okay?
yes.
Okay. Let's have her. Is that Kusafred member or the gentleman from Botswana?
Good afternoon. I should stand up. Okay. My name is Thato Radijeng from Botswana. I'm a film director and producer. I'm going to flip the coin a little bit. I find it very difficult to discuss commissioning and not talk about money. And I find it very difficult to come to a business arena and discuss business and not talk about money. So that's why I'm saying, I know you've been saying, let's not talk about money now here. Let's follow people out and discuss money. Then there is no point for me to be in this room today. I think if we talk about commissioning, one would be interested, okay, what will make me stand up to go and say, I want the station to commission me? And it should be the money drive. This is a business like we were saying this whole morning. It's a business. Business, money, time. That's subject for me. So I'm going to say, unfortunately in Africa, we have this thing of being, we are taught as we grow up to be apologetic when we make money. Please, I think this is the era that we should be very proud to make money. I should be able to stand up and say, you know what, from that job, I made this much. They say money goes where it's invited. If I feel I have money and I tell you about the money that I have and I tell you how I make it, more money is coming my way. If I act poor, no money is going to come my way. The little that I had is going to go away. So I'm just saying to this house right now that let's be very proud to be making money. Let's discuss how we're making the money. Let's help each other. Let's give each other ideas of when I'm saying my program got commissioned. I'm talking about a rough figure of between 2 million and 3 million. That's not you telling me you have 2.5 million. That's not you telling me you have 3 million. Because there's production costs, there is collaborations, there is all that. But at least you are giving me an idea of this is how much you can get. So you can invest this much because you're going to get this much. So I think it's a free space for us as filmmakers in Africa to be able to discuss money, to be able to help each other on how to look at things because they're going to give you this much profit, not this much profit. I'll give an example from Botswana. We are crying about money. Productions are not bought at the rate that would desire them to be bought. But when I'm talking of a 13 episodes series of a magazine show, they'll take it at between 1 million and 1.5 million. Pool. That's 13 episodes. You convert. You have Google. Convert to dollars. I don't know the exchange rate right now. But you see what I'm saying? So then we know that I'll be saying, no, Botswana is not paying. And maybe when you compare, when you are in Malawi or wherever, you'd think Botswana is paying. So it's our space now as Africans to say, but what is the fair market? What is the fair price? And it's from these kind of gatherings that we need to be able to be confident about the monies that we get so that we can lobby for each other. If we stand as Zimbabwe and as Botswana and as whatever, we're not going to make it. But if we stand up and say, you know what, associations in Botswana and in Zambia, let's come together and say, Africa, our content is so rich, we can't sell it for this much. Then we are talking, then we are going somewhere. So that's why I was saying I'm going to flip the coin.
Zula is right. Huh?
Okay, so I'll start answering the question by the gentleman there. The previous section was talking about distribution. So when you create your own content, you take it to a distributor. What's so fun is if you go on Google right now and say African distributors, film distributors, they'll pop up. And then you click, and an email address will come and you send an email of your work. So it's that simple. You get what I mean? And those distributors can get your content to Netflix, to Amazon, to Disney, to when you're in the Emirates or you're in Kenya Airways, depending on where you're flying, they can actually get your content on that platform. So how you negotiate now is really up to you. So in terms of getting your content distributed is easy. Now, to monetize it, that's now the difficult part, which I can break down for you. So how distributors or channels look at content is demographic and relevance of the content. So they'll look at what is the subject matter. Does this relate to an audience in East Africa, in West Africa, or in Europe? If there's a disconnect, then they don't need to buy that content for what? So you need to create content not just for your community. If your content has this inside joke, this is just maybe for Zambians, for Botswanas, they will not understand it. You want to be able to watch content that cutters across Africa. So I agree that I think that unison of Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia come together to have numbers, because we don't have numbers. How many people are in Botswana? It's probably maybe 2 million. You know what I mean? That's probably how much celebrities in Nigeria, when they tweet, how many likes they get. So if you look at Nigeria has 200 million people. So there's no way a streaming service will bring big money here. They'll take it that side because that's where it's going to generate more subscribers. Where here we're scattered subscribers. So it is true that we need to come together. And they won't pay big money because they're looking at you and they're looking at, okay, what's your story is told in this area. So if you're from this region, your audience is already small. So why should we spend big money? Then also your celebrities, are they known everywhere else in Africa? No one knows them. They're still... Yes. So to paint the picture, yes, but it's Southern Africa. So Zambezi Magic is a Southern African channel. Whereas a platform like Netflix is a global platform. Whereas a celebrity in Nigeria has more chance of being global. I can put up a face of a Nigerian actor, be like, oh, we know him. How do you know him? maybe pirated DVDs or anything. The fact that they got into your space, that's value. So what we need to do as filmmakers is start building value, whether it's actors, whether it's filmmakers, is, I think what you already said is you take the deal first because you're building capacity. So as you build capacity, you have to have a game plan. Like, okay, how far do you want to go with this thing? So like, as much as we created our first film, there's already been a game plan. Like, okay, how do we create a story that convinces bigger platforms? So our strategy was not to, our actors are known for, as much as there's actors we know in that film, but to me, those actors are not known globally. No one knows them.
And you get that from distributors a lot.
Yeah, so that's the first thing. That's the feedback they got. They said, we don't know these people. But they looked at the quality of the film. So our strategy is make sure that your quality is strong. Then it opens a different conversation with your distributor. Because your distributor will be looking, they can receive a lot of films. They receive 1,000 films. So what makes your film stand out is when they look at 1,000 films, they'll separate the Nigerian ones, the South African ones, the Kenyan ones, and say, okay, these are the films that we'll consider first. But when you're from the smaller region, is you need to make sure that your quality stands out and is strong. So like, I'll give you an example of Can You See Us? Can You See Us became top 10 in 13 countries around the world. So we were in America, in Australia, in Canada, in the UK, and in Nigeria, we were number 1. And there were Netflix originals on that platform that we actually beat. But it's because of the quality of the story and the style of how it was produced in terms of cinematography, in terms of sound and everything. So I think what we need to do is not create stories that are expensive to produce, because as a filmmaker, like what we said, where's the money? It's very difficult to find money as a filmmaker. So what you need to do is create stories even if it's one location, but make sure that the quality is strong from how the picture, the sound, the performance, and the story. When you create content like that, it will start to open the doors. They'll start to recognize and say, oh, so if you go to TikTok right now and when you type in Can You See Us, there's Nigerians asking, saying, when are we getting more content from Zambia? So what that has done is open up the conversation to say, oh, there's Zambia, because they didn't know. I remember getting a call from the streaming service. They were asking, what is Zambia Kuchalo? Because they were doing research. They were looking at the tweets, the comments, and then I explained, no, it's Zambia to the world. Then they also got into the groove and started talking about these things. So in a nutshell is, let's come together. He's right in terms of we probably might not come together. But is, the thing is, find like-minded people as opposed to wait for associations to come together. Because if they waste your time and they don't come together, it might not happen. Find people who you're like-minded with, and then that's your association. And then if everyone agrees and wants to work with the association, then we're on good. But find people that are like-minded, and then work with them, and also create content that cuts across borders. Whether you're getting actors from Zambia, from Zim, and you put them in one story, but make sure that the story makes sense, why everyone is coming from different regions. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Rock. Thank you so much. Yeah, I believe we've discussed the issue, this matter very well. Unless there are... Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say, collaborations, that's what I'm thinking about. Let's make it an intentional, let's be intentional about it. Let's not talk about it, because I think we've talked about these collaborations. Okay, we've talked about collaborating for the past 4 years. But maybe is this time that somebody has to say, let's collaborate and let's do it. Whether it's going to be from scripting or whatever, let something happen. Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, let something happen. And if we say it from from us here now, say, For example, we just got in here. I don't know if we registered anywhere. We have our telephone numbers. We have our email somewhere where somebody could say, this is a thread of emails that somebody's going to send something, and then, you get what I mean? So it begins from even us hosts to make it an effort to make us collaborate. So I would really say from here, let's write our email somewhere. Let's write our number somewhere. Let's get it going from there.
We've done it before, as our governments have shown us. We have a one-stop bridge, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia. We have one bridge. So it's possible. It's possible we can do this. Yeah, let's do this. Yeah, bruh.
So we did a film called Comrade with a very good filmmaker who came up with this idea from Zim. His name was Steven Njagu. I feel there isn't so much hardships for these countries from the southern region to collaborate, because it's just those borders which are there, but the stories, the way we tell stories, the way we speak, the way we do things, they're almost the same. I think the collaboration will bring more strength in distribution, will bring more strength in sending a certain message that we have the numbers. So I totally agree with what she's saying. Because when I did that collaboration with the guys from Mozambique and Zimbabwe, when I attended the first premiere in Harare and the second one in Mutare, just the way people from other countries came in, it felt different. It was a very good experience, and I pray that such collaborations continue. And I pray that after this Sotambe, something should start building from here. Thank you so much.
Just in line with our next topic, which we should be summarizing, and I think we've touched on it, most of it. It's talking about how do we build inventory of African content. How do we build inventory of African content? Okay, now there's one thing that our friends are doing very right in the Western world. When they pick, I think I don't know. Those of you that are exposed to the Western world of doing things, maybe you can share with us. I think, coming from a marketing background myself, what we do every quarter, okay, for example, we say this quarter, we're going to talk about gross acquisitions, like growing our numbers in the telecoms, growing our numbers. How do we grow numbers? How do we grow our numbers as a telecom? So we'll do campaigns that address growing numbers for that quarter. The second quarter is how do we do retention? Of course, in the past, we have lost some customers. How do we bring them back? Eventually, we like that. I think in the Western world, there's a way they do content. I think, like, sorry, not offending anyone. I respect everybody's rights, but when they talk about gay rights, you find that from Ben 10 to commercials to big movies, all of them that year or that particular quarter will be addressing issues of gay rights. What is it that we're doing in Africa? We recently had Shaka Ilembe, for example, a very good project. But how are we telling our stories? We are all over. Or are we all over? We talk about Shaka, then the next one comes and talks about Mussolini, the other one talks about... We are not organized in the way we're telling our stories. Is that correct?
Yes. Can I just add on?
Please.
I remember there was a time I attended a workshop of African producers in Luxa, and the first concern they had is that there's a lot of African filmmakers making content in a bubble. So in your bubble, like Kenny said, your story is making sense to Mr. Nguzo because he can get your joke. And so you make it and think it's going to make it out there. It's not, because people that are out there do not relate with your storytelling. They don't relate with probably something that you're connecting with. And so just to go to what B just said is, let's be in touch with the world out there, the global stage. Let's be in touch with distributors. Ask them, what are you looking for? Because it's not all the content they will get. It's not every time. What they got 3 years ago is not what they'll be getting this year. And most of the time, we forget. So because Kenny has worked, and Mr. Thompson on Can They See Us, I want to do a story on an albino, right? And that is a problem. So the first thing we need to do is ask. Email these distributors, like he said, just Google. You find AA is there, Gravel Road is there, ask them. What is on demand at this particular point in time? They will tell you to say, oh, maybe it's rom-coms. Like now, it's rom-coms and uplifting stories. And LGBTQ films, like BJ has said, these are the content that are selling. So now you look around and say, how do I make this content? And now collaboration comes in, right? So how do we collaborate and make a rom-com? Because it's what is going to sell. But if we say, oh, let's just collaborate and make a film about maybe Chakuti, people are not going to buy it. And this is why we have like content on our shelves, because we make content in a bubble. Because Chungu gets it, BJ gets it, Kenny gets it, and we're going to join hands and go with a camera somewhere. That has to change. So we need to start thinking business-wise. And I think most filmmakers come from a passion perspective. We come from a place where we're passionate storytellers, but business lacks in us. We lack the business mind of understanding film. What is working out there? How do I get there? How do we do this? We always believe, so long as I'm passionate, I have like a script somewhere, I have BJ to go for a camera and get a lens from Chakuti. Let's meet Yoweli. Go. Let's go and shoot. When you go, even when you're talking about collaboration, we can collaborate for nothing. 20 people can collaborate. I get people from Zim, get people from Botswana. We meet in a bush, do a film, but that is pathetic. What is that collaboration for? It was for nothing. So as we collaborate again, what are we collaborating on? Do we understand what we're doing? This is not just about people coming together and saying, oh, because she has a concept, let's go. No. Do we understand what is needed? Are we in touch with the global world out there? Okay? When we get in touch with the global world out there, it's easier for us to what? To know what's working. As long as we're going to be in a bubble, believe me, 20, 30 years from now, we'll be speaking the same language because we refuse to grow. So from now onwards, we understand we're all passionate filmmakers here. Can we also understand the business side of film? Because this is what has been lacking in this country and in other African countries. And for a long time, we've struggled. For a very long time, we've struggled. So can we please, guys, leave the bubbles? Let's get in touch with the world out there. Thank you.
Let me add on. I think to Alekana Kalipe, let him be upset. It's very irritating, actually. The bubble might burst.
I had to explode.
I always tell people that as in Zambia, we live in a landlocked country. The worst thing is that most people are mind-locked. That's the bubble he's talking about. So we'll spend 3 amazing hours here talking and encouraging each other to collaborate and defining what an inventory is and what collaboration is not and stuff. And then what? You know? So I believe that we need to, first of all, look at the root cause. For whatever reason, it's very obvious anyway, but I will not go into that. Most parts of Africa are programmed to struggle. Mm-hmm. You know, we're programmed to struggle, and obviously that's a whole big conversation about the conditioning and everything that happened. And I think we need a new breed of Africans who, first of all, are not intimidated with each other. I love you. Mani is my best friend, yo. I love her because I was like, she should be on my team. She'll bring me so much money. So we need to, first of all, understand that whoever has the money will come and control the narrative. We'll go out there and pitch our stories to the West. They have the money and they will control us. They will tell you that Kenneth Kaunda and Denzel and Mugabe in your story will be played by Denzel Washington and that other American guy.
Yes.
So I think we need to change this. And I mean, I have a strategy. What is your strategy? My strategy was, okay, my first 2-3 projects will be commissioned because I do not have the money. I do not have the technology. I do not have the connections. And so I personally started out with commercials, with Trade Kings. And I did everything I could do there, and I learned so much. From there, because I had positioned myself, I was visible. I did not accept my own invisibility. Yes, I was broke. I had no money. I depended on Trade Kings to pay us that little money, but I was very strategic. I went to every film festivals I could go to. I invested. How many of us take time to invest? Mm-hmm. We don't take time to invest even in our stories. And then when you position yourself and then the funder comes, we were talking about the quality of your story. Have we mastered? Are we masters of our crafts? Or do we settle for less? Do we settle for mediocre success? That's how it feels for me, like Africa, most parts of Africa have been conditioned. We are conditioned to just accept mediocre thing. So we can talk here and talk here. It's going to start with our attitude. It's going to start with us also taking time, like you talked about the trends out there. We need to catch on with the world of them. Because right now, I understand a lot of technical. Who owns Africa's content? Who owns Africa's content? I've been trying to find that answer. Does anyone know who owns most of Africa's content? Anyone with that answer?
Anyone?
I do know that most of the art is African art is where? Kuma UK, I don't know. Someone told me the French own most of our films in Africa. I don't know if that's true.
Yes.
They do?
Yes.
So
Okay.
The discussion we want to look at, we want to look at how do we take inventory of our content, the African content? How do we become custodians of our own content? How do we do that? Remember the gentleman from Malawi talked about us telling our own stories, and what stories are we telling? Are we telling stories of poverty? Are we telling stories of what? It's what we want the world to know. It's what we want. So what do we put in that African bag? What are we putting in that? That's what we need to discuss. Well, you want to say something? All right, let's start the ball rolling from the audience.
All right, so
You may want to start.
all right, yeah, sorry. Yeah. All right. So basically for me, I think it's the change of narrative, because for so long, okay, just to give a bit of a background, I'm also a dramatist. I do drama, and I've done a production. I've done a production, I'm calling it Alidzi. So it talks about Africans rising up and telling their own stories. Because not just only stories, because, you know, it's a good question to say who owns our stories. Most of the times, the ones who owns our stories are the people who have money, and they have their own way of telling our stories. These people, they manipulate even the media. The way the media would tell a story, it would be very different from the way I would want to tell my story. For example, something is happening in Zambia. They'll start concentrating on bad thing. They have only one narrative about Zambia. You know, these people are corrupt, blah, 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 all these things. But there is something that is happening in Zambia which people are not talking about. So if we are to start, maybe we can start from there. Let's change the narrative of African stories. Let's change how we tell our stories. Let's sell our world. He mentioned to say there's content from West Africa, be it piloted or not, but at least we have that content. If we create content and we expose that content to whoever it can be, people should start seeing us differently, and that will really make us more visible, because we don't just have to be visible with any kind of story.
And then undermine the associations ourselves. If we want to make inventory of what we have done in Zambia, why not register them with NAMA? Then NAMA will have an inventory of the comedy is done, the feature films done, the romantic films done, the action films done.